7, no. Item number 8 is going to be pulled from the agenda. So under approval of the agenda as posted or amended, I'm going to actually make a motion to pull agenda item number 8. Number 8 was going to be pulled. It's okay, we'll have plenty of time.
Had cancer. Had cancer on his face. So he got cut off, so I had to wear that for a while. But it reminds me of a cartoon. Remember that cartoon character?
Okay, where's
Yeah, he does. I can't remember the cartoon character.
I'd like to call to order the January 27th City Council meeting of the City of Atwater. At this time, could we have the call to roll, please?
Here.
Here.
Jeff Rivero. Here. Joe Rivero.
Here.
And Fall is absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask Councilmember Larry Bergman to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by the invocation, so please remain standing after the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the
Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for the invocation.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, you are a good and gracious God and the giver of all good gifts. Father, we thank you for the gift of life. We thank you for living in this community of Atwater. We thank you for the blessings that you pour out upon it. Father, we're thankful for another year. As we come before you, we ask for your wisdom and your guidance. Lord, we ask that you would continue to guide our city council. Please watch over our first responders. Please bless all the employees of our city. And Lord, bless all the people that live in Atwater. Lord, we thank you for this evening and these young people that are here today. They've come to learn more about their city and to be students of learning, and that they would learn to appreciate what our council does and what our government does for them. And Lord, we thank you again for all the blessings that you give us. We ask you to send your Spirit upon us to give us wisdom tonight as we chart the course for 2014. And Lord, we humbly ask you for rain, that you would pour out your blessing upon our valley, so that we can continue to have our livelihood and sustained living here. And Lord, most of all, thank you, just thank you for everything that we have. And we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Yeah. No, I got some more. Before we move on this evening, I'm sure you noticed, can I have attention, please? In the gallery, attention. Thank you. Before we move on, you obviously noticed that Mayor Joan Fall is not with us this evening. Our prayers go out to her for a speedy recovery. We wish you were here, and we know that you're here in spirit. At this time, I'd like to move on to the approval of the agenda as posted or as amended. At this time, if there's any item that which council wishes to remove from the agenda, we will entertain that at this time. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as posted. Councilmember Rivero?
I was going to ask if there's anyone here to speak on behalf of Peggy Heller Elementary School request for the fun run. If we could pull that off so they can announce that.
Sure.
Thank you.
So we will remove item was that, council member?
Number 6.
Item number 6. Just postpone that until we have a member here to speak on that, or
I believe one here to speak, so if we could pull it off for today and have it.
for further discussion?
Yes.
Okay, we'll remove 6 for further discussion. I see a light for Councilmember Joe Rivero.
Yes, for the consent agenda, I'd like to pull item 5.
We will pull item 5 for further discussion. That's on the regular agenda, but we're just talking about consent right now. Okay, and actually, I would like to pull item number 8 under public hearing for postponement until the next council meeting. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for the remaining agenda.
So moved. I'll second.
I have a motion from Councilmember Bergman, a second by Councilmember Rivero. Any further discussion? Call for the question.
Joe Rivero,
Yes.
Bergman,
Yes.
Jeff Rivero,
Yes.
Moningham,
Yes,
motion carries.
thank you. So the first item, I believe we have Mr. Hickson here for item number 6, Peggy Heller Elementary School request for assistance with Fun Run fundraiser to support outdoor education.
Good evening. I don't want to overstep my bounds. Would you like for me to share briefly the plan? Okay, very good. I really appreciate the opportunity to stand before you this evening to present a proposal to you at this time. My name is Nathan Hickson. I am the principal at Peggy Heller School, which is located at 201 Lakeview Drive. Later in the spring, we would like to conduct a fun run. Fundraising, as many of you know, can be a challenge at times, and coming up with unique opportunities to elicit funds can be a struggle. To send our 2 6th grade classes to outdoor school, which is Jack L. Boyd Outdoor School and Fish Camp later in the spring, the approximate cost is about $12,000. So we engage in multiple fundraisers, and we're trying to find something unique that isn't widely used in the community. So the team at Peggy Heller School has come up with a 3K for camp, kind of a catchy slogan. And we need your approval to proceed. We've started the process, speaking with district office personnel. We have a school insurance authority. We understand that it is a complicated undertaking, but with your approval, we'll be able to proceed. We have taken some steps to have conversations to this point, but we need your approval to proceed.
Thank you.
I am available for any questions. I don't know. It's in the initial stages, so I'll try to share as much as I can if any questions are out there.
Thank you, Mr. Hickson. Councilmember Jeff Rivero.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to make possible approval of request for Peggy Heller Elementary School for police cadets and explorers assistance with their fun run starting in the parking lot of Peggy Heller School and continuing to Lakeview Drive, Schaefer Road, East Manzanita, Mermaid Drive, Lagoon Drive, and the rest of the streets on the date to be coordinated with our police department.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Jeff Rivero, a second by Mr. Bergman. Any further discussion? Councilmember Bergman.
I was just wondering, Mr. Hickson, have you narrowed the dates down any, or is it still pretty?
We have. When I submitted this proposal to you, we were kind of casting a broad net. We are looking at either March 1st or March 22nd. So out of the 6 dates that you have on your paperwork, we've narrowed it down to 2.
Okay, thank you. Given the fact that I'm off duty for both those, I'd like to issue a challenge to the rest of the council members. I'll be out there running, and I challenge you to join me.
Fantastic. We appreciate that. The gauntlet has been thrown.
Well, I may be walking, but I'll be out there.
It's all right. It's a fun run. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, we'll call for the question.
Moningham,
Yes.
Bergman,
Yes.
Joe Rivera,
Yes.
Jeff Rivera,
Yes.
Mayor Fall is absent. Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item for discussion, item 5 under ordinances. Ordinance number CS 948, temporarily amending ordinance number CS 824, CS 945, and 947, reducing the amount of public facility and improvement fees charged for new residential development, creating a cap on the number of units under this program, and providing city council discretion to increase the cap on the number of units per developer. Mr. Joe Rivera.
Thank you. I just asked for you to pull this item, so it wasn't in with the whole rest of the consent calendar, as I will not be voting for this item on, I think that giving further cuts or billing fees during this time that are currently already some of the lowest, if not the lowest, around and within the state is wrong, especially since the majority of the members jumping on this decided to raise fees on taxes on the residents quickly. I don't think any special interest group should be getting a wholesale cut, of which if I had heard there was up to 3 developers maybe capitalizing on this, 3 developers times, if they capitalize on the total amount of fees, that's a savings to them of over $500,000. And I think at this time, that's wrong. Those $500,000 eventually will have to be made up by some of the residents. So I think that's why I will not be supporting this.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Any further questions or comments on this item? I personally feel that the long-term revenue generated by increase in our property taxes through this development will by and large make up for any shortcomings initially through the reduction in the impact fees and permit fees. Property taxes are by far our primary source of revenue, and not to mention the shopping dollars, sales tax dollars, all the ancillary sources of income that single-family residential development brings, and it's bringing it to Atwater as opposed to Livingston, Turlock. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we go ahead and approve staff's recommendation as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? I'll call for the question.
Jeff Rivera,
Yes.
Joe Rivera,
No.
Bergman,
Yes.
Moningham.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Moving on to the final item that was pulled, item number 8. City Manager, do you have any comments on that item?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'd like to pull this to the next council meeting, the second council meeting in February, if I may.
Thank you. Mr. Bergman?
I just wanted a point of order here. We kind of jumped over, we're not following the agenda. We missed our presentations and comments to the public, and we've kind of glossed over that, so just wanted to bring that
Okay,
forward before we go
we'll
too
get back
much
to
farther.
that. We had a discussion item here. We'll get back to that definitely. Let's go ahead and address item number 8 if we could. Any further discussion on pulling item 8 under public hearing? Mr. Jeff Rivera.
If we're going to pull this item, I would like for, on our next council meeting, that we have an update and maybe go over exactly, because there's a lot of information out in our community, and I'd like everyone to be on the same page when it comes to this, especially the usage tax, to make sure that not only the council, but the citizens are on the same page of how the flow of this should go. We've already been in the newspaper a couple days for not having things posted, so I think it would be a good idea to bring it to the council, go over some of the particulars of misinformation, and then let people know what our scheduled meeting times are, so that way the general public can come and add any information they'd like to this advisory committee.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, we will have a report for you on the February 6th meeting. The city attorney will go ahead and give us a presentation on the ordinance, if you will. Sure. Is that okay with you, Councilman Rivera?
Okay. Very well. At this time, under presentations, I'd like to, I didn't see Mr. Hoffer there is Mr. Hoffer right there. If I could have Joe Hoffer come down and join myself and Parks and Rec Director Ferretta. Here we go. Personally know Mr. Hoffer for at least 10 years. Had the pleasure of serving with him on the Atwater Chamber of Commerce, and obviously known of all the countless hours that he's given to the city through the Police Activities League, Junior Giants, and just a myriad of other programs throughout the city. And it's truly a pleasure to have known you, to work alongside you. I know the city is going to dearly miss your hours of countless service, and it's going to be a tough task for us to find the several people necessary to fill your shoes. But at this time, I'd like to turn the mic over to Parks and Rec Director Ferretta, and I'm sure he has some kind words to say as well.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Mooneyham. On behalf of the Atwater PAL Police Activities League Board of Directors, which I'm part of, as well as some of our members of the audience here are a part of, I would like to thank Joe Hoffer for 12 years of service on the Atwater PAL Board. He was relentless in getting programs started. 2001, when Joe came on the board as the executive director, Atwater PAL only had 2 programs for the youth of our community. Today, we have 12 programs serving many of the underprivileged youth in non-traditional sporting and other activities. And all the programs are going strong thanks to Joe's leadership and guidance in the program. So on behalf of the PAL Board and myself and the City Council, it's definitely been an honor and a privilege to work with you on the PAL Board, and I wish nothing but good things in your retirement and in the future. Thank you, Joe.
Not yet, Joe. I'd like to read the certificate of recommendation, if I may. The City of Atwater presents this certificate of recommendation awarded to Joe Hoffer on his retirement and in appreciation of his 12 years of dedicated service to the City of Atwater as Executive Director of the Atwater Police Activities League, PAL.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Really appreciate it, Chief. Thank you. I want to thank the Pell Board for their support. They've been supporting me for the last 12 years, and I really appreciate that. I appreciate the hundreds of volunteers that we've had through the years. Because without volunteers, there would not be any Pell. So I want to thank all of the hundreds of volunteers that we've had. And the last thing is obviously the kids. We got to put them number one. And again, thank you very much.
Congratulations again, Joe. At this time, we'll move on for the comments from the public. Clerk, could you read the notice to the public, please?
At this time, any person may comment on any item which is not on the agenda. Please state your name and address for the record. Action will not be taken on any item that is not on the agenda. If it requires action, it will be referred to staff and/or placed on a future agenda item. To comment on an item that is on the agenda, please wait until the item is read for consideration. Please limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Price, could you state your name and sign in for us, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mayor for temporary Mooneyham, City Council members, ladies and gentlemen, nice crowd. Jim Price, 3467 Village Woods, and tonight also identifying myself as a member of the Measure H Oversight Committee. Mr. Mayor, at the last City Council meeting, there was a lot of discussion that came about the procurement of a snorkel-type fire truck for the city of Atwater for a building that yet has not gone through this planning commission. Been judged by the City Council, not one shovel load of dirt gone over. Back in March, we had a special election to institute a half-cent sales tax for public safety. Now, I understand that the funding that can come by way of Measure H can go towards the procurement of this fire engine. However, the citizens of this city voted for and assumed highly that the city was going to apply this money towards law enforcement as a number one priority. Although fire is also involved in public safety, it was the police that had the lion's share of the energy. At the last City Council meeting, Lieutenant Joseph stood here in the podium and recanted 4 shootings in the month of December. Then we came to the fire engine issue. Now, I believe that the fire engine is an important thing. However, for a building that hasn't come yet and all that, I think this is a huge mistake. Prioritizing should be towards the police. Secondly, I want to also indicate tonight that the Measure H Committee has been in the paper and has taken a lot of heat for a lot of different reasons, and rightfully so, I might add. Our first meeting was an illegal meeting as well. It was not noticed to the public. It was not held in a public forum. And once we do get together, we're going to need to make all the actions null and void. That meeting was not in accordance with the Brown Act. Secondly, when there was a gathering for looking at the fire engine, according to the accounts in the Sun Star, there was at least 3 members of the Oversight Committee at that viewing. That too is a Brown Act violation. Under the current way that the ordinance is written, it's 5 members. 3 makes quorum, thereby making a Brown Act violation. Lastly, members on the committee, there are 2 that currently hold positions that are appointed by the City Council. And those positions, under at least my interpretation and the way that the Brown Act may be written into this, is that officials may not serve on the committee. Now, I've already spoken to the city attorney on this, and I'm sure that there will be discussion away from the City Council meeting. But this committee was tasked to oversight, and we have yet to do that. It has been mired in nothing but controversy, and this committee needs to come and gather and get it right. The citizens of this city deserve to have their day. They voted for it, and as anybody that knows me knows, I was not in favor of the half-cent sales tax, but it was not because I'm not for public safety. There is no bigger advocate in the city for public safety than I. But we've got to get this right, and the police are the ones that are the ones that we need. We need to make this right. We need to make it right as soon as possible. We need to stop making Atwater the rim shot of every brunt of every joke that comes down the pike here. Let's get it right, and let's make sure that the blood that was spilled from 4 citizens back in December does not go in vain, and I yield back my time.
You have no time. Thank you.
City Council and residents of Atwater. I'm here probably to speak the same thing as Jim is.
Could you state your name and sign in, please?
Ruth Osteen. It's 60 La Playa Way, Atwater. I agree with Jim that Measure 8 was a push for extra patrol officers. So what do I see in the newspaper? We leased 5 patrol cars. The next day on the front page, here's a big picture, you're looking at fire trucks. So how many policemen have you hired? None that I know of. So I look at the push for Measure 8 as was very misleading, or you might as well say was a lie. And maybe you all forgot that we almost filed for bankruptcy here, so we ought to be more careful with how we spend our money. Thank you for your
Thank you.
time.
Judy Bowling, 137 Judy Drive, Atwater, California. A little annoyance. There was one meeting that was put into the newspaper. The anger that I feel when people sit here in this chamber and when Jim Price said from this podium that there was to be a meeting the following night. No one in this room said, wait, that can't be done. It's not right, it's not legal, or anything else. And the minute that it's done, and I was there was nothing in that meeting. We showed up, and it was a non-meeting. And then for all of the hullabaloo, I was out of state and heard about the hullabaloo over it. People need to give it a chance. That committee is working and trying their best. But instead of letting things happen, sitting here when you know information that could have avoided that and not putting it out here, shame on you. Thanks.
Thank you.
I guess nobody else is left. Hi, my name is Wayne Wallace, 1653 Van Terrace, Mayor Pro Tem and Councilman and everybody else. Looks like a new group up there. I just want to say one thing about the newsletter. Sometimes people discover it 7 months later, but we won't talk about that. I want to thank all the people that is sending me stuff. I just put next newsletter to bed. I have 4 8.5 by 14 pages of material. So if you have something you want in there, you better get it to me by the 24th. And I thank you very much for the ones that are sending me the stuff. It gets out to the people and they read it. I know that because guess what? On the headed, the city phone number is wrong. And I heard about it. But anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Wallace, and thank you again for all of your countless hours you've put toward that newsletter. It's really easy to chuck hand grenades, but a lot of people aren't willing to step up and do something, and you, sir, have, and I thank you for it, okay? Thanks. Mr. Lee.
Eric Lee, 1199 Atwater Boulevard. Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. I am the chairman of the Measure H Oversight Committee, and as such, I am the one that called the meeting, the end of the meeting, that when it was brought to my attention that it was not posted properly. Nothing was discussed at that meeting, and my understanding of the Brown Act, there wasn't a violation. But I think the thing that bothers me the most is that when someone knows that there is a problem, they don't call me, text me, email me, let me know, and they wait till the meeting supposedly starts, and then they grandstand. I don't like that. Now, the committee is not charged with decision-making on spending priorities, schedules, or project details, funding sources, decisions, e.g. leveraged funds, developer fees, etc., financing plans, or tax rate assumptions. The committee shall serve in an advisory-only role to the city manager. That means that the council is tasked with deciding where the money goes, who gets what when they bring in their wish list. That means fire and police, because that was what Measure H was passed for. Now, I'll address briefly the fire engine gate. I've spent time on ride-alongs with the police department. I've spent time with Sammy Joseph, Bill Nowitzki. I've spent time with Mark Pimentel. I've wanted to see how the policemen operate, what their needs are, what their wishes are, and anybody on the Measure H committee is more than welcome to do that, as pretty much any citizen in this room is. I've asked the questions. I've done the legwork. I volunteer. I pick up shopping carts on Saturday. I don't like picking up shopping carts, but I do it because it makes the city look better. I'm putting myself out there. I'm volunteering to do this because I see a need and I feel strongly about my city. A few years ago, I sat at home, watched meetings on television, and said to myself, what the hell are they doing? They're not doing the right stuff. And I called people and I complained. And then a light went off and I said, you need to get involved. And that's what we're trying to do. And I think Measure H is a big step forward. It takes time. The police and fire have to develop a list, and that takes time. As far as the fire truck goes, I got a call. If I wanted to see the fire truck, I said, certainly. Other people showed up. There wasn't a meeting. Any other questions? I'm here. I'll be here the rest of the meeting. Feel free to ask me.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Anyone else from the public wishing to make comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on. We've actually covered our consent calendar, so we can go ahead and move straight to item number 7. I see a light for Mr. Jeff Rivero.
I had a question for Mr. Terpstra. On the Measure H committee, isn't it basically their responsibility to look at all options? Not that they want to buy, advice to purchase a fire truck or police equipment, but is it their basically obligation to look at all the possibilities and then bring their suggestions forward?
When you say their responsibility, you're talking about the oversight committee?
Yes.
No.
So they're not supposed to look at equipment? They're just, what are they meeting for?
If you look at the ordinance, the members of the oversight committee purpose and jurisdiction to review expenditures of revenue collected pursuant to the ordinance. So that implies and obviously means you look at expenditures that have already been made, and you make sure that they're consistent with the purposes of Measure H. So it's not a front-end obligation.
It's a back
It's
end?
a back-end obligation. So certainly, if the city council, at the advice of the city manager, decides to purchase an apparatus or to hire personnel, those decisions are made, and then the oversight committee's job is to go over those expenditures and make sure they're consistent in their view with the purposes of the ordinance.
So since nothing's been purchased with Measure H, then there's really no reason for them to meet until something's spent?
Well, there are a couple other tasks. You review audited financial statements, you review the performance of the fund, you review the expenditure plan, and they can certainly make recommendations. They can certainly view things prospectively, but in terms of having to render a formal opinion or advice before something happens, that's not what's contemplated in the ordinance.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Moving on to funding and budget matters, item number 7, Treasurer's Report for the month of November 2013. Mr. Heller.
Good evening, Mayor Troth and the councilman. Before you have the November 30th Treasurer's Report.
Any questions for Mr. Heller at this time? Mr. Jeff Rivero.
Going to ask Mr. Heller on the wastewater treatment plant and the bond, are we on schedule and everything looks good to go for the next payment?
It's due April.
And we're on target to...
We're on target.
Thank you.
Mr. Heller, a question, it may be more apropos to ask Mr. McBride this, but I did see a line item under the NSP funds for $160,000, the Neighborhood Stabilization Program. Do you know if we have any new projects for the utilization of those funds, or are those even available to be utilized yet? Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. Those are funds that were designated for rehabilitation and purchase of bank-owned properties. We do have one unit that's on Schaefer Road. We have a situation that we're trying to work with the state and get some guidance on. The the contract that we have with our service provider that was a subrecipient has expired, and there were deadlines for the use of the money had to be used by I think it was end of June, or you had to have a contract in place for the work to get done. So even though our contract with the service provider expired, they had a contract with the actual physical contractor to do the work. So we're trying to get advice on how to best proceed. So the money that's there would be for the rehabilitation of that last unit. And then once that unit is done, if we can do it, any sale proceeds would be program income that would be returned back to the state. We've expired the time frame, and it's too late now. So that's where we are.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Heller at this time? Councilmember Joe Rivero.
Yes, sir. All of our contractual obligations being paid,
Yes.
as they should be, including the contracts with CAL FIRE. Are all payments being made?
I just authorized 2 more payments as a finance director here. Yeah, we just authorized 2 more payments to CAL FIRE this morning.
How far are we behind, or where are we with that?
We're 1 year behind on the CAL FIRE? Okay. Oh, 1 payment behind?
One payment?
Yeah, we
Okay.
authorized 2 this morning, and so we have 1 more payment to go.
Okay. And this is all back from previous payments?
Last year.
So just one month behind. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Heller. There's no other questions for Mr. Heller at this time. Go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report for the month of November 2013.
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilmember Bergman.
I'll second the motion.
I have a second from Councilmember Jeff Rivero. Any further questions or discussion? Call for the question.
Bergman,
Yes.
Jeff Rivero,
Yes.
Joe Rivero,
No.
Mooningham.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, at this point, just a quick cleanup. It occurred to me that we took action on the items that were removed from the consent calendar, and
I
now
thought we made a motion to approve the balance of the.
did we make a motion
yeah,
to do that?
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it's been recorded. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We pass? Item pass?
Item 9.
Okay,
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Motion carried.
thank you. Item number 8, under public hearings. We are pulling that into the first meeting in the month of February? Second meeting? Second meeting during the month of February, excuse me. Moving on to item 9, proposed amendment number 1 to approved plan development, final development plan, number 05-1, Community Development Director McBride.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Before you tonight, you have the first proposed amendment for a final development plan. This is actually the first time that the council's processed one of these. As you know, some time ago, some action was taken to do amendments to the plan development ordinance to allow for a process for something like this. The plan development has kind of 2 components to it. It has the master plan, which is often the subdivision or the physical improvements, and it has the development plan. That's kind of what's going to be built at that location. In this case, it's a residential project. The development plan are building elevations. I'm going to show you here a few exhibits of what's being proposed by the builder. The builder is Blue Mountain Communities. Tom Whalen is here tonight. He's the president. He's here to answer any questions if the council should have them. Let me show you these real quickly here. This is an exhibit kind of showing the location of the units. As you can see here, this is Avenue 1. Buhawk Road is, looks like, okay, Buhawk Road here. And it looks like this is dead, but I can improvise. We've tried to mark here for you with locations with the X's to show the lots that are going to be bought by the builder. There are obviously existing homes that have been built by Pacific Union Homes in that area. There are also lots that are not owned by either Blue Mountain or Pacific Union Homes. In fact, they no longer have any interest in it. They're all owned by other interests. But eventually what you're going to end up with is you're going to end up with an area with probably 4 or 5 builders in one area. Obviously, when it was originally intended, it was going to be one builder to build everything out. Market has dictated that that's not going to happen now. Right now, you have the homes by Pacific Union Homes. You have homes 4 or 5 built by Evolve Construction. This will be the third one, and there's still, I believe, about 30 lots remaining for another builder that can come in and buy those. So I want to make sure you have a sense of what this is. So the Plan Development Amendment would pertain to those lots that are designated that they're going to have under their ownership. I recognize this might be a little dark, but what they tried to provide for you here was a sense of how some of the elevations of the homes would look, kind of adjacent to each other. Tried to provide for variety. That's one of the things that you have in your adopted guidelines, is ask for a variety of building elevations. You don't have the same exact plan repeated over and over and over. Try to have a mixture of it. Also in your packet, they have an exhibit of a typical street layout, which shows different setbacks. They also try to vary the setbacks so they're not all in the same plane. The builder has proposed to have 4 different plans, each with 2 elevations. I have those. I'd be happy to show them to the council. The home sizes range from 1892 up to a little bit over 2,300 square feet. This is one of the proposed elevations for the 1892. Secondary elevation. Obviously, typically people come into the sales office, they kind of get a choice to pick which one they want to have. There are also other options available to them. This is another plan. This is the 1920 plan that they're looking to have. So again, one proposed elevation. I'll show you a different one. To help fit into the character of the neighborhood, they have tried to match the materials for the roofing. I know that was a big issue for the council, so these are all, they're not comp roofs, they're all tile. Actually, they're cement manufactured roofs. Some do have some variation that look more like tile. They're more rounded, Spanish style. Some are more slate looking, meaning flat. It's obvious you have colors involved too. Although the council can't see it, we do have all the same color boards here in front for the public that they match up with these elevations I'm showing you here. This plan is a little bit over 2,000 square feet. Similar to that, this one has more of a Spanish tile looking roof, a little bit different color variation. And council, I know in your packets you also have the floor plans for each of the units. We wanted to concentrate primarily on the visible, what you see. This is the 23-24 plan. And the final elevation here, same plan. So the way that our ordinance is set up with regard to the plan development is the council's discretion now to make the final approval on the proposed changes. That's the final development plan. It is a 2-part process. It did go to the planning commission. We did have a public hearing at that level. Commission reviewed it. It was a vote to recommend approval here. It wasn't a unanimous vote, but it was approved by them. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. The builder is here tonight. They can answer questions as well. I just would want to point out that the builder is actively involved with projects in the Central Valley. They're anxious to get going here. They have kind of approached the project. They recognize that some of the lots that they have purchased, I believe they've purchased or you're under contract. Some of the lots they have under contract are going to require an amendment to the floodplain, so there's an expense for them to go through that process. We've been working on that with other builders in the area, but they can get started on some of the lots that don't fall in that designation, and that would allow them to kind of get started and then phase those in over time. So that's an issue we would have to resolve. And again, be more than happy to answer questions that the council has, and also Mr. Whalen's here that can help as well.
Thank you, Mr. McBride. Any questions for staff at this time? Mr. Joe Rivero.
Yes, thank you. The size of the homes that are coming in are between 1892 to 2324?
Yes.
And what's the existing size of the homes in the neighborhood?
24 to
4,000?
Well, of what's built so far, on 50 lots out of 150, they range from, let's see here, 2,250. Well, I take that back. You have them anywhere from about 1,900 square feet almost to 3,800 square feet. There are 5 plans with, I believe, 3 different elevations each.
Thank you.
I do have those if the council needs to see those for any reason.
Actually, I have one more question too. I wasn't here during this development when it went through, but I understand that there may have been some kind of requirement for a well to be placed in at the completion. I'm not sure about that. I wanted to clarify that.
I believe the prior builder did designate land for that, did pay for the engineering for that. I don't know the exact timing as to when it goes in, but I do know there's a site that's been worked on for that. And obviously, they're paying, each home pays for a connection fee, which helps go for that.
Right.
The situation you kind of have is that builder is no longer in business with us, and so I don't know how you would, we don't have an agreement or contract with them for that, so it's going to have to be paid for as it goes with what money we collect from each unit, I would suppose. But I'd be happy to talk to the city attorney on that. But I do know that a lot of work was set aside for that, and the site was designated for that well.
Okay, that was one of my concerns, especially with the water situation right now and the impacts that this will have on that neighborhood. And the council voted tonight to reduce fees, and we're going to need the fees to potentially build another well over in this area. So I just have some concerns here.
I believe the subdivision was sized for everything that's there. Otherwise, we wouldn't have allowed all the lots to get improved. And again, that's a master plan level. They're looking only at the development plan, which is the building elevations. They're not proposing any changes to the arrangement of the subdivision.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff at this time? Councilmember Jeff Rivera.
I was going to ask that with these homes, with what we voted on tonight on the fees, how much of the fees are reduced or waived for the water?
The ordinance tonight would take effect 30 days from today, and it allows for up to 30 units to receive the credit, or they could take the option of the deferral, so you got 2 different choices from that. If they were to take the credit and pay for them, pay the fees at the time the building permit is applied for, it's about a $6,000 benefit, a little bit over $6,000. So pursuant to the adopted, once it's codified, they'd be eligible for 30, and they would have to come back to the city council and request any beyond that, should they need to do that, and that'd be up to the city council. That's your discretion. That's in the new ordinance.
Okay, I was asking, okay, what's the breakdown between what the savings will be on the wastewater treatment plant and water? Because from what my understanding was, most of it came from the next phase of the wastewater treatment plant on the fees that we're not deferring, but would be giving them a rebate on.
Councilmember, I don't have the ordinance in front of me, but as I recall, the reductions were in 2 areas. It was applicated interchange fees and the component for the supplemental expansion of the treatment plant. And then the remainder, that was about half of it, weighted half of it. The remainder was spread evenly amongst all the other AB 1600 impact fees. So you have parks, signals, traffic, variety of the fees.
I was trying to get the exact percentage, but
I could have provided that, but I didn't know you needed that, and I'm sorry.
No
So I
problem.
wasn't aware that you're looking for that detail of information.
And the other question I had on the Spanish tile, is that the same type of Spanish tile that's already over there in that area? Because that's one of the reasons we had that wasp problem, because the way the tiles were developed and it being in the paper wasp area,
Right.
the wasps were able to,
The nests.
they got infestated. So is there any way we can check on that, the Spanish tile, to make sure that we won't create a further problem?
I'm not an expert in vector pest control, but I think it's similar to what's over there already. Mr. Whalen, do you know anything specifically about the tile? It's just,
Sure. was hoping to be able to discuss with you to make sure that we don't add to the problem. About 4 or 5 years ago, what we tried to do is put out traps for the queens to come out, because every queen you killed, I think it's over 100,000 that you wiped out. And then after it hit 72 degrees, and the workers came out, and that's what you tried to trap with. We had put traps out with sugar in it. Prior to that, the queens would go after the meat, so you need to, we had UC Merced come and do a presentation, and basically it takes 14 days of freezing weather to help knock off the wasp, and we didn't have it for a couple of years, but for the last couple of years, we've been putting the traps out, and we had a pretty good, decent 2 years ago freeze, so the problem's gone down, but they haven't been eradicated yet, so like I said, we don't want to add to the problem, but I appreciate.
Any other questions for staff at this time? I'd just like to thank Mr. McBride for all his work and working with the development team. That's most appreciated. I think, personally speaking, I think the plans show a lot of thought in maintaining the continuity in the existing subdivisions that are there. I think the square footage you offer is a fantastic compromise to the existing footprints that are there. So it looks like a great project, and we wish you well. And please, if there's anything else we can do to help you, help facilitate the development, please don't hesitate to ask. Okay. Councilmember Jeffrey Vero.
I was going to ask Mr. Terpstra, the city council was very proactive in this, that we saw that with the foreclosures and a lot of empty lots being out there, that there was a possibility of different developers coming in areas, and we tried to be proactive on our design review. So what exactly protects the citizens? I know we got a lot of people out there that would probably be interested, that were either building by them or potentially building by them. So how does the design review help protect the citizens, that a developer doesn't come in and put up a home that doesn't match with the other homes in the area?
Well, I think that's an important function that the council, back before my time, decided to retain that authority, decided to retain that jurisdiction, so that you could make sure that as later phases of projects developed, that there was a consistency there. And that's part of what you're doing tonight, is making sure that you retain the consistency so that you don't have portions of a project that look one way and portions of the project that look the other way, and there's nothing, and people come to the counter and say, what can I do about it? And the building official says nothing. Now your building official has the ability and to go back, and the council has the ability to go back and make sure that you retain that consistency.
So is that one of the responsibilities of this council, obviously, but also of the planning commission, to look at what the homes are potentially going to blend in with the already existing homes? Does the planning commission have the right to ask questions and check that out for us?
Well, go ahead.
Actually, having been a member of the planning commission at the time, we spent probably the better part of a year going over the residential design guidelines and trying to establish those criteria to where we didn't have that same problem that reared its head with the 1,200 square foot home next to the 4,000 square foot home. So I would agree. I would think that would be a primary duty of the planning commission.
And then one other thing, that prior to you being selected as city attorney, the past ones brought a few of the state laws saying that you can't restrict or put barriers on square footage, but you could on the elevation. So that's one thing that we made sure of on the design review, is to not violate any state issues by putting in square footage, but making sure that the design review for elevation was correct.
Well, and I think you've seen, and if you read the minutes of the planning commission meeting or followed that discussion, the last meeting that they had, consistency is often in the eye of the beholder. Consistency is not an objective thing necessarily. It can be somewhat subjective, and the commission wrestled with that discussion at their meeting. Some of the commissioners thought maybe that there was a few other items that would achieve more consistency or make it better, and that's why it was not a unanimous vote at the planning commission. But it's a good process, and I think it's a valuable process in terms of the public's right to participate as well.
There's no other questions for staff at this time. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing and take any testimony from the public on this item. Anyone wishing to speak or give us their 2 cents on this agenda item, please approach the podium right now. Seeing none, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and take it back to the dais. Is anyone wishing to make a motion on this item at this time? Councilmember Bergman.
Move to approve staff's recommendation as presented.
I have a motion by Councilmember Bergman. I have a question from Councilmember Joe Rivera.
Yes, thank you. I always like to hear from the residents that it's going to affect the most. Were they contacted about the development, and did they see any of the plans? And were they invited to the meeting? Did they know that this?
We sent out the notification to all the property owners in the vicinity. It's pretty wide. I don't recall the exact number, but it approached nearly 100 property owners that the notification was sent to. So they were aware of the dates of the meetings and a little bit of other information that came in, but that's primarily what we did.
Okay. Was there any pictures of the homes that are coming in next door, or just so they had an idea what was taking place?
I think so, but I don't recall specifically. I don't. I saw there was a long list. A lot of those functions are handled by other staff. I can't do everything on my own, but I think there was a little bit of information that came along with it.
I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
I have a second by Councilmember Jeff Rivera. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the question.
Jeff Rivera,
Yes.
Bergman,
Yes.
Joe Rivera,
Yes.
Mooneyham.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you. And again, good luck with your project. We appreciate it. Moving on, reports and presentations from staff. Verbal report regarding CMAQ funding applications. Again, Community Development Director McBride.
Thank you, council members. At the last meeting that we had provided you an overview of the CMAQ program. And at that point, we had an imminent deadline, just a few days away. You gave us some guidance on what you thought priorities would be. And we were able to prepare and submit, originally it was going to be 2 applications, it ended up being 3 applications. And I just want to report back on that fact to the council that we were able to submit those. And we did receive some notification today from the County Association of Governments. It looks like they are recommending approval of our applications to the MCAG Governing Board. Obviously, there's a process for this to go through. It still has to go through a couple of steps, but we prepared an application for a traffic signal synchronization project that would be all the signals near Highway 99 that would build upon the work that the council's already provided an engineering contract to go forward on for the intersection at Atwater Boulevard and Winton Way. Obviously, that intersection and signal project is still yet to come, but we have funding allocated from prior bond funds of the redevelopment agency to do that work, and we hope to go through that process. So this would include that area. It would also entertain a new signal at Olive Avenue. So it would be a very comprehensive project to get all the signals around Applegate, Commerce, Atwater Boulevard, Winton Way together. I can share with you a tentative schedule. Again, this is all subject to approval by the MCAG Governing Board, but it looks like they've approved for the project engineering in the upcoming year, and then this project would be slated to be built sometime in the 17-18 year, fiscal year 17-18, so I know it's down the road, but at least it is a commitment of them, and we asked for a fairly significant amount of money. It'd be basically almost a $600,000 project. In addition to that, we asked for funding to improve pedestrian infill on a bike path along Juniper Road. That would be between Schaefer Road and Buhack. And again, they're allocated project engineering funds in this upcoming fiscal year and slated for 17-18 fiscal year for construction. The third project, which we originally had included in the second one, would be for Buhack Road pedestrian infill. That would be on the east side of Buhack Road between Avenue 1 and Buick Colony High School to provide for sidewalks and an ADA ramp there at the corner of Avenue 1. That one looks like it can be funded in the 15-16 year with project engineering coming up in this current fiscal year. So that's what we were able to do for you. As I stated, this still requires MCAG Governing Board approval, but we want to report back that we're able to get these applications in.
And obviously, these would be helpful to improve pedestrian access. The whole point is to improve air quality, so if people can bike, walk, or get through community quicker without stopping, it provides for relief of air quality, and that's the program. That's why it's designed to be this way.
Any questions for staff at this time? Scott, we know that you were under the gun to come up with this and complete this application, and it would have been easy to make the excuse of we don't have enough manpower, but you got it done, and we appreciate it. It looks like some great projects in the future.
And we'll keep working on future ones. There'll be other funding rounds. We want to try to get applications in as we go. Obviously, if there's a need for these everywhere, so we can try to match those up with the funding resources that are out there.
Great, thank you. Moving on, verbal report regarding water restriction program, I believe, not conservation.
Conservation.
Conservation will do.
Council, good evening. I'm here before you tonight to talk about the water conservation program we currently have in place and what steps we've been taking. You guys all got a packet tonight of the water savings kit, shower head, faucet, nozzle replacement. Right now, the city of Atwater has a water conservation program, code 13-13, which basically from June 15th through September 15th, water restrictions from noon to 6 p.m. every day of the week. Currently, the public works staff, the entire staff's out on patrol, looking for water wasters, broken sprinklers, people running water down the gutter into the storm drain, basically wasting water. So we're actively educating the public right now. Excuse me, I just got over a cold. Last week in the Sun Star, there was an article about water restrictions and water conservation, and we provided some information on that also about our water conservation program. And I'd like to get any input from the council and tonight about possible water restrictions, if you guys were concerned about that and what you wanted to do.
Councilmember Jeff Rivera.
I was going to suggest that we put in our newsletter and possibly in our building, asking people to turn off the water during the wintertime as soon as we start getting rain. I know that there's a 20 to 30% chance on Thursday and Friday, but eventually we'll start getting some rain in February. So if we could ask people to...
We could put that in the utility newsletter is what you're saying? A water conservation paragraph or something about how to conserve water and be more efficient with the irrigation use. And
yeah, one of the major things is during the wintertime, especially when we're getting heavy rains, when they do come, is to turn your water...
Right, there's no reason to water the lawn while it's raining.
Yeah, and then ask people in the spring and summertime, even though we don't have restrictions saying that you can do odd and even, if we would ask the town to voluntarily rotate their water days, if we can come up with a program how we want to do it odd and even, but on a voluntary basis, ask people to conserve during the spring and summertime. And then, like you say, all the other systems that you can use inside of your house, like on toilets, if you have a tank behind it, you can put in a brick.
yeah, if you have an older home, you can go to Home Depot or Lowe's or Orchard or wherever, and you can update your current shower heads or your faucets for more water efficiency type of a head. So most people don't think about it, but when you take a shower, you're in there quite a while. If you've got the old shower head, you could be wasting gallons per minute instead of, 1 or 2 gallons a minute. It adds up really quick. At the end of a 20-minute shower, you could waste hundreds of gallons. So
The other thing too is, like I said, with the tank on a toilet, if you fill it, I know economically some people
we
can't
could put those-
put a whole bunch into their home, but there's cheaper ways of doing it.
yeah, you
like
could put a
filling
brick
up
in the toilet tank. We
brick or
put that in the
filling up-
newsletter and maybe a half-gallon jug or
yeah,
or
and
other
that-
things to disperse the water in your toilet so you don't waste so much when you do flush.
But there's energy and water savings that we can put in our newsletter like such to advertise and ask people to cut back as much as possible.
The more they conserve, the more the residents conserve, the less we have to pump as a municipality. And with the drought that we're in, it's important that we all conserve, and it's everybody's responsibility, not just one individual. It's the whole community that we all conserve so that we don't waste water. With the drought going on, there's no end in sight, and it takes years to recover from a drought. So it's important that everyone conserve and do their part.
What does it cost per 1,000 gallons electric-wise to pump the water?
I don't have that detail with me right now, but I can get that for you. It's not cheap.
Because I know the city of Atwater, ever since we were trying, but to conserve water, I believe the last couple of years, we've been going on the downhill side of usage. So I'd like to see, I know when we were having our public work meeting, we talked about how it was into the millions of gallons a year that we were
I will tell you that the single largest electricity cost the city has is the pumping of all the wells. That's a huge cost, and we need to take it serious, and everybody needs to conserve.
At our next time you're at a meeting, would you mind presenting us with how we're doing with our water usage over the last 4 or 5 years, and then getting us the numbers of how much it costs to pump 1,000 gallons, so that way
We could do that.
collectively
And,
as a town, we can shoot for a goal?
also, in your annual consumer conference report, it states how many gallons we pump every year, so I can get that information to you tomorrow and to the council, and you guys can see where we're at with usage. Typically, it's gonna stay steady or go up a little bit as we add people to the community and the needs change. But, also, if anybody wanted to talk about the water restrictions, or we're not gonna go there.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for staff at this time?
I just wanted to add, I think it's putting the cart before the horse if you're asking for restrictions. I think the first thing you would do is ask your citizens to conserve. If they can conserve on their own, why are we putting more restrictions on our people?
And we'll do that. We're currently educating our citizens now. We're gonna go out as we see anybody wasting. We'll stop, we'll educate them, we'll inform them what's the proper practices and assist them the best we can.
Thank you.
Thank you. This time, we'll move on to city council matters, city council comments and requests for future agenda items. We'll start off this evening with Councilmember Bergman.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Actually, tonight I have nothing to report. I'll keep it short and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to Councilmember Joe Rivero.
Thank you. I'd like to start off by congratulating all the Atwater youth that participated in the Merced County Office of Education speech contest. I understand we got a second place winner, and there was 3 honorable mentions, so congratulations to you all. I knew some of them, but I don't know them all, so I'll try to get their names for the next meeting and announce them. But they did an outstanding job. I got to go there one day and view it, so great work representing the city of Atwater and your schools. And I also like the city manager to bring back to us anything they might be working on as far as grants for fixing the roadways, sidewalks, roadways that may be out there right now that we can apply for.
Thank you. Councilmember Jeff Rivero.
I know we're adjourning our meeting tonight in memory of 2 people, but I personally knew Dorothy Buckingham, who I was able to go to her 100th birthday about 4 years ago out at Castle Vista. Very nice lady. It's kind of weird how sometimes our lives cross each other's paths and we don't even know it. But I remember being just a little guy watching the news and talking about a lady who had stopped. Someone had grabbed another lady's purse, and Miss Buckingham basically dove in, grabbed the purse, and told that lady that she was giving the purse back or else, and there was a struggle that ensued, and Mrs. Buckingham actually held the lady until the police showed up, and I don't know why I remembered that, but I did, and this is a lady that added to every community that she was in, and she bounced around a couple places over her lifetime, but she was a real asset to the city of Atwater, and we'll miss her, so I just wanted to say that we'll miss Dorothy Buckingham. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd also like to thank Margarita for filling in for our city clerk, Gina Del Real, this evening. We were both thrown a curveball this evening, so we pulled it off, Margarita, so thank you. And I'd also like to, again, wish the mayor a speedy recovery. Moving on, I know that the Atwater Chamber of Commerce is on their Wednesday coffee, is actually going to be reviewing the proposed city sign ordinance revisions with Community Development Director McBride, and that is still at 8 a.m. And where's it being held? I'm sorry. It's being held right here, City Hall. There you go. Couldn't ask for a easier place to remember. So any citizen that's interested in having input or reviewing the proposed revisions to the city sign ordinance would be welcome to come down to the meeting and interact with other community business leaders and look at what's proposed for signage in the coming years. I'd also like to thank the Public Works Department. The evidence of their hard work is seen throughout the community. Also like to thank City Manager Petro for giving that direction. I've seen numerous filled potholes throughout the community, and it's high time that we do that. I don't think my car could take much more. So appreciate it, Mr. Creighton. Also, I'd like to give City Manager direction, if I might, that we bring back for the second meeting in February the water conservation topic for further discussion and possible action. And I know that Elmerwood School leaves for Jack Boyd Outdoor School tomorrow, so good luck for all those sixth graders out there getting to experience outdoor school. And with that, Councilmember Jeff Rivero gave a great review of Dorothy Buckingham. I didn't have the privilege of knowing her, but she sounds like a truly tremendous individual. We'd also like to adjourn in the memory of Donna Wilson. I understand she was a police clerk during the 70s and 80s, and she was a tremendous asset to the police force here and to the city of Atwater. So to her and her family, we offer our condolences. And with that, I will adjourn this meeting of the Atwater City Council. Thank you.